Hi, today we are excited to welcome Dr. Andrea Weber to our chat with Priscilla. Dr. Weber is the Assistant Dean of Students, and she is also the Director of Student Conduct. So welcome to our call, Andrea. Dr. Weber, how are you doing?
That's okay. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about student conduct, some of the things that fall under your area. You know how when I think a lot of people, when they hear student conduct, they're thinking I'm being sent to the principal's office. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about the code of conduct for our students and why that's important for them to know and to review it?
Sure. So, the Code of Student Rights and Responsibilities is a document that's on the website, housed in our office, and then also the policy library. And it has the expectations for their behavior when they're our student. And I say when they're our student because it could also be the expectations for their behavior, even if they're off campus, if it affects our campus community. So, um, it also encompasses when they live with us too. So, included in that document are the expectations, what happens when someone thinks you're in violation of those expectations, and our policies and practices, which students will want to review if they happen to be asked to speak with a member of either the Office of Student Conduct or one of our residence life staff.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about what the Office of Student Conduct does on campus?
Sure. I like to think it's twofold. One, we're going to talk with students about the expectations we have for their behavior, and specifically when we think there's a violation. But then also, we're able to help them if they think they've been potentially a victim of a violation through our code of conduct and be able to provide them some resources. So, we like to do some programming out in the campus community with different student organizations and different residence halls, and then we like to partner with different offices on campus as well.
So can you tell us when you say violations, can you go a little deeper in what that means?
Yeah, I think some of our high level ones, and I mean high level that there you repeatedly see happening on a college campus is, um, has the student been drinking? So have they been drinking off campus? They come back to their residence hall or they come back to campus and they're visibly intoxicated, and a staff member, whether in the residence hall or on campus, such as our safety, have to address them. And it might necessitate that maybe the police get involved, or even EMT get involved, depending on the level of their intoxication. In our residence halls, it might be that they're drinking in the residence halls. For the most part, our residence halls, you have to be 21 to have any kind of alcohol. There's a couple that you can have alcohol if you're 21. So for those ones where you can't have alcohol, have you been drinking? Do you have possession of alcohol? So for instance, do you have beer in your room or bottles of vodka? All the way extending to, then do you have leftover containers? So, for instance, do you have beer cans, empty beer cans in your room? Do you have shot glasses? Do you have alcohol paraphernalia that resembles something that would be you would drink out of it? Also, another high level one is obviously drugs on a college campus. Have they been smoking marijuana on campus? Do they have drug paraphernalia? Um, One piece of that code violation I like to talk with people about too is it's not appropriate to take medication that's not yours. And I'm not talking about aspirin. I'm talking about prescription drugs that, so for instance, Priscilla, if you've got a prescription drug that's written out to Priscilla Childress, you should not be giving it to me, Andrea Weber, because that's not mine. And we both would be in violation of our code then, as simple as, um, some people decide that they want to give Adderall to someone else, and that's not appropriate. We also deal with things like, are people stealing door decorations off of residence life doors and damaging those, stealing signs in the hallways? Are they stealing from their roommate? Noise violations? Have they gotten into a fight with someone else? And I'm not just talking verbal, I'm talking physical fight. Have they forgot their bear pass, or they've given their bear pass to another person who's not them, if they're not being cooperative with our staff, if they are a female and they're going to the bathroom inside of a male restroom, if they're not supposed to be a guest at that certain time. So right now with COVID, we have a policy where you can only be on the first level of the residence halls and you can't go up and down. So for instance, let's say I live in Hammonds, I go over to Freddie, I can't be in one of the rooms. That's a visitation violation. And then also right now with COVID, you got to wear your mask. And so we're seeing a couple of mask violations, not only in the residence halls, but across campus as well. So we'll deal with a broad spectrum in terms of the code.
Can you talk a little bit about if a student gets a violation for alcohol or for drugs, what's that procedure that happens for are there different levels? You know, are there fines? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So what's going to happen initially is they're going to get a letter from either the Office of Student Conduct or a residence life staff member, depending on the level of that conduct. Our hall directors deal with all first alcohol policy violations where someone's not been transported or talked to the police. And then they deal with all lower levels, such as what I talked about with door decorations, noise violations, some visitation as well. That letter is going to come to their email and they will log in with their M number. It's a secure portal, only they can log into it. And there will be an explanation of what we think happened, as well as the code violation. And then we've already looked at their academic schedule and found a time that they can meet. Right now, we're doing all of our meetings via Zoom. A student can request to come in person and we'll ask that they be masked. And if they request a different time because they want to come in person, we'll work with them. Once they receive that letter, they'll have a meeting with the person who's going to adjudicate that matter, where it's our intention to listen to them. You know, what happened here? Can you explain what's going on? In that meeting, then we'll talk about our policies and procedures. We'll see if they have any questions. We'll talk about our confidentiality. So for instance, knowing you're working with parents, we're not going to talk to parents about what's going on unless the students released that information, and they can ask for a release for that information and we'll get that to them. Now, if a student's been transported to the hospital, we're going to definitely call the parent on that one, or the emergency contact, I should say. Or if it's a higher level alcohol policy violation or drug policy violation, we're going to send a letter home to that parent or emergency contact on file. So through the conduct meeting, we're trying to figure out, what happened, help them understand our policies and procedures, and then give some kind of educational sanction. Educational sanctions and consequences can be broad as well. All of our consequences and sanctions are listed on our website. With alcohol and drug, there's going to be some fines. We have a tiered system. So first alcohol will start at $90 and progressively get higher. Also, in there will be paired some education, like they'll take an online module, have to write some papers. When they get into higher levels of alcohol consequences, they might see some probation, not only university probation, but residence life probation. And then when we get to our highest level of alcohol, we talk about, should you be living on campus anymore and whether you should be staying with us. Drug has a fine as well with it, $100. We have them go see Justin Johns over in the counseling center. They're doing Zoom meetings right now too. And then put them on a high level of probation, which might take away some privileges for a certain amount of time, like leadership positions and study abroad and their ability to represent the university, as well as give them the ability to do the online module. For some of our consequences, they're not prescribed and written out on the conduct website. However, we try to tailor, does the consequence fit what's going on? So does it make sense for them to write a paper to really think about what they did? Right now with COVID, we're altering some of our community service plans depending on where they're doing service. There's a lot of agencies still doing service and okay with doing service, and they have good COVID precautions. But then there's also some agencies who are doing indirect service where the student doesn't have to go into the agency. They can do it via website or from the comfort of their own home. So it might be that we assign community service in that way. So once again, broad range of what we have capability of doing. Um, Also, sometimes, unfortunately, we are the people who say that we're not going to have you go to school here for a little bit of time. And it could be anywhere between a semester, or maybe it's you're never going to go to school here for the rest of um, the time that you would want to go to school. And we're the bearers of that news, and it's because we want to protect the campus community. If you've done something that's warranted us saying that, it's pretty serious, and we want to make sure that we're protecting everyone else.
So are the police called for every violation that a student is involved in?
Not necessarily. Typically alcohol and drug, they're going to be called automatically. So hall staff smells marijuana, they're going to call their area coverage and then also call police. Alcohol, it depends on the severity of the intoxication with the student. Example, student comes back to the residence hall, they've been vomiting everywhere, they're slurring, they can't articulate certain answers to questions, they're having a hard time walking. Um, the police are probably going to be called in that respect, and also EMT too, to check and make sure that they're in a good place or if they need to be transported.
So can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that your office has that educate the whole campus about doing what's right and being a good member of our community?
Yeah, sure. Um, as you can imagine, the Code of Student Rights and Responsibilities is a hefty document for them to have to read. And I'm sure I like to say when we do SOAR, they're probably reading it on a Friday or Saturday night when they got nothing else to do. But we'll do every Tuesday, we do Trivia Tuesday. Our graduate assistant will put up a question on our social media sites, and students can go in and answer questions for a prize. And that's a way for us to start talking with students about, what is your knowledge of the code and how can you answer these questions? We also offer some blog posts too through our website to educate parents, faculty, staff, the campus community, and students about what our code means. So for instance, recently with the election, we talked about the expressive activity policy and how that keeps our campus community safe. Our office in February is going to do a Family Feud event with our student organizations. We're going to first quiz and survey our student organizations, similar to Family Feud, and then have them all come together on Zoom and answer questions about the code. We also do a lot of programming with fraternity and sorority life in our residence halls. There's been instances pre-COVID where we've been invited to different programs with the hall staff so they can get to know us and we can talk a little bit about the code. And then with fraternity and sorority life and our student organizations, we do some training with them on risk management, their behavior, and how to be good campus community members too.
Can you talk a little bit about Title IX and how it is appropriate on our campus?
Sure. So I'm going to refer back to the Title IX policy on the website. And what happens there is with the new Title IX regulations is if it falls under the Title IX guidelines, Title IX has a body now of decision makers who will actually work with that process. And so if it doesn't happen to fall under the Title IX guidelines, it could potentially come over to the student conduct office under the code. So for instance, it might be that it's physical misconduct or harassment or maybe a different code violation, which would then be adjudicated under our policies and procedures.
Can you, what advice would you give to our families about conversations to have with their students, when they're home on break or when they're getting ready to start at Missouri State?
I think they need to have some really honest conversations about what those expectations that they have for behavior and see if they match our expectations. what I like to tell the parents and family members during SOAR is if you start to see some charges on that Bursar bill, or maybe you've gotten a letter from us, maybe it's too late to have some of those conversations. So have them now where you can start saying, okay, if you're going to engage in this behavior, I, as the person paying for your tuition, is not probably going to pay for those fines. Maybe they will, who knows? But you all need to determine who's going to pay for those things and what's appropriate. And then also, is the parent or family member okay with, um, you know, those behaviors taking place while they're at the college campus? And so I think it's just really time to have honest conversations about how are you a member of the Missouri State community and how you want them to act.
Okay, Dr. Rebel, we just have one more question for you. How long have you, well, two more questions. How long have you been at Missouri State?
Oh gosh, Priscilla. I came to Missouri State in 2008, and I actually was the fraternity and sorority advisor at first.
That's wonderful. What's your favorite tradition at Missouri State?
Oh gosh. There are so many. I mean, we used to be avid season ticket holders of the Lady Bears. And so, yeah, actually, Priscilla, we used to go together. We had season tickets together, and it's something I miss now, where we're not feeling as okay going because of COVID. Another tradition that I really love is when the PSU decorates for the holiday season and encompasses different holiday decorations, because I think it really sets the tone for the holidays to begin and gives this warmth on the campus community.
We very much appreciate you joining us today for a chat. We look forward to seeing you again on campus soon, and have a great day.
Thanks, Priscilla. Thanks for having me.